Namato Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha and Dhamma and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello everyone. Good evening. So today is Thursday the 30th of July 2020. This is Achan Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. And I'm here with you all to share. And thank you very much everyone following on this Facebook Live Dhamma Talk. Hello Margaret, Manish, Ankas, Emma and everyone. So I hope you're all having a good time. But here in our center we are having a lots of rain and all we can see is rain. But it's lovely. Yeah. We also had a visitor from Glasgow today. Right. Okay. This is a series of Dhamma talk going on, and so far I've been explaining about the Four Noble Truths, and recently have discussed on the Fourth Noble Truth, and which is the path, Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada. And yesterday I have analyzed and gave a background of what the wordings are. The Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada. And today I am going to speak on again further another angle to understand how we come to the right understanding, which is the first factors of the Eightfold Noble Path. And this first path, or the first factor in the Eightfold Noble Path, is very, very important factor in the whole Buddha's teachings, and that is the Samma Ditti. And here the Samma Ditti, there are so many translations you can see, and one translation is right attitude, another translation is right understanding, and a right view, and like that. But in my understanding, they should be translated as right understanding rather than a right view or a right attitude. And a right understanding here is the factor that helps us to energize and continue practicing. So that's why right understanding and a right effort and a right mindfulness, these are the three main factors for the enlightenment. Right? And the right understanding sounds right translation for the Samma Ditti because one has to understand it properly before it's become a view or before it turns to the attitude. And when we look at only the view, in Buddhism normally it refers to the wrong understanding or wrong view. So it should come together with the Samma Ditti. And when we look at the words, again, Samma Ditti means the path or the state of ourselves standing on that platform to achieve the calmness of the mind. And that is the real translation for the Samma Ditti. And a basic term, when we look at the Sammaditthi, what the Sammaditthi means, or the right understanding means, then normally if you read the books, you will find not understanding the Four Noble Truth, or understanding of a Four Noble Truth is the right understanding. Now, I used to think of it in a round and round. The Four Noble Truth is the Buddha's teachings, and then when we look at the right understanding, which is the first factors in the Fourth Noble Truth, says what is the right understanding, then again goes back to the term saying right understanding is Four Noble Truth. So basically we are going around and around and around and around, and so we will not be able to comprehend what really that means. So in order to understand, in my understanding is that we have to go to understand the Paticcasamuppada, the dependent origination, particularly the factor that I have explained, the cause of the sufferings, the desires. So when in our life at this moment, in the present moment, what all we have is the five senses. So 6 senses, not 5, 6 senses, and that's eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. And these 6 senses, when it comes to contact with the outer senses, like a visible object, the sound or the smell or the taste, or the body comes to contact with the things and the mind comes to contact with the mind objects. At that moment, the sensations arises, called a Vedana. And when Vedana or the sensation arises, at that moment is the real moment that we can experience. And that is the defining point, whether we are turning to, whether we are having a right understanding of the Vedana or not, or are we having the craving or desire, and which is again the main root cause of all the sufferings. So that's why in a practice of a meditation, if you are diligently practicing, what happens is that whenever sensations arises, any feelings arises, all what we are trying to do is to understand this sensation as anicca, impermanent, that arises only for temporarily. And the very moment when we understood that these Vedana or the sensation arises for temporarily, not for a longer, then we will not have any thing to cling on it, and simply understood this as anicca, the changing nature. Having understood this changing nature, basically there will be no clinging, there will be no attachment, there will be no furthering on it at all. And that's what is known as the vidya, the wisdom. And that is the right understanding. And in this way, that's why in Paticcasamuppada, the dependent origination, the connecting point from Vedana to Tanha, or Vedana to the Eightfold Noble Path, which is the right understanding. So that's how we are turning from this day-to-day life cycle towards whether to crave for new generation or whether to end the new formation. And that begins here in this moment. But if we would like to go through the theoretical practice to understand what this First Noble Truth is, then basically we are going back to the same again, what the Four Noble Truths are. Okay? So the First Noble Truth, basically it's in a way, it's easy to understand but hard to comprehend it. Yeah. And things that is anicca, the always moving or always changing, which we cannot accept it as the permanent entity. But what happens is, because we have this attachment, or we have this grasping or craving nature, whenever things happens, we normally crave or we grasp, and then we create a new form or new things. Nevertheless, what we need to understand here in this right understanding is that in the Buddhism, it's not talking about anything other than the 5 aggregates, and need to understand this 5 aggregate, or this body and the mind, as having a right understanding of this is as not ours. It's a constant formation or constant in change. And this body is basically the rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, vijnana, or the corporality, feelings, perception, and the volitional formation, and the consciousness. These 5 aggregates that we need to understand properly. And once we have fully understood this properly, then that leads to the right understanding. So that's why the right understanding here, again, in a basic term, simply knowing what is good and what is bad, and a second, understanding that our own self, or this 5 aggregate, the corporality, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness, are not belongs to us, but it's a subject to change. And further on, what we do, what we need to understand, that these 5 aggregates are forming every moment when we experience or when we come to contact with the things. And as a result of that, the practice of a vipassana meditation is simply to understand that connection, that formation, and rather than jumping towards the craving and forming a new life cycle or new birth or a new form, new existence, simply out of not knowing what should be known, or we know that very moment, in this moment when it is taking place, and its true nature, that it is arising only for temporarily and not for the long period. And then we simply return, or having a right understanding, or arose the vijja, so-called wisdom has arose, and that wisdom leads to the right understanding. Okay? So that's why in a short term, what we can see that knowing the cause that creates and knowing the cause that vanishes is the right understanding. Like you can have an example of let's say a formation of a book. So before this book become a book, we can see that it's coming from the trees, or it's coming from this barks trees, and then it go into the purification and condensation, and that's how it's become a paper. And then once it's become a paper, then again gradually it formed into a book. But again, this book is not a permanent thing, and again slowly this book turns into to the dust, and then again it helps to the nature and grow again the new form. And another way, another example again we can see is a cause and effect. It's like the rain. Rain, again, the water falls down on earth, and it again goes into the ocean, and the sun again soaks it into the air, and again it's become a cloud, and again that become a rain. So it's like a vicious circle going on, and we can see what is cause and what is effect on here. Another is classical and quite easy to remember, is like if you put a glass of water in a freezer, that transforms it into the ice, and then that ice again transforms, once a few while, and if you leave it outside of the fridge, it will transforms into the water. So like that. So having understanding this existence and also vanishing is the right understanding. And this is, we don't have to go through this philosophical debate or philosophical, understanding of what a right understanding in Buddhism. But my understanding is that if you diligently practice meditation, and if you really understood its method and theory, and ability to be mindful of all the sensations that comes to contact with you, and the ability to have objective observation rather than subjectivity, then that leads to the right understanding. Because the objective observation, basically you are seeing it in its true nature, and you are not having anything to do with it. You are not reacting to it, but simply responding to it. And with this, and this is the, in action, you are having this practice of an Eightfold Noble Path, the beginning with the right understanding. So that's why, this is the right understanding in the first factors of the Eightfold Noble Path that Buddha was talking. And this is also knowing what is wholesome and wholesome. Right? And it's also right understanding too. And if we look at in our day-to-day life, anything, if before we will generate our perception or understanding, or taking it into the like this is right or this is makes sense, first of all what we need to do is to go on and study and find out. So that's why in order to get the right understanding, Buddha said that there are two ways to get the knowledge, or two ways to get this understanding. The first is known as Parato Ghosa, which is listening from others' explanation. Basically, those days they use the hearing a lot. If you hear, or nowadays it's like reading books. That is also part of the Parato Ghosa, means the listening from someone else's knowledge. And that is, again, is not the real knowledge yet. It's just a knowledge acquired by listening. It needs a very thorough investigation and wise reflection, and that's known as the Yoni-so-manasikara. And this Yoni-so-manasikara is a very essential part of the Buddha's teachings, that we need to reflect wisely and with a wise attention at all the time on the things that we have heard, things that we have seen, before we go into the conclusion that that's right and wrong. So it is the teachings of the Buddha that always opens up and then giving us a chance to investigate, and which you can see in the qualities of the Dhamma that we normally chant every day, morning and evening. It says that come and see rather than come and believe, and always encouraging us to investigate whatever you have heard and whatever you have seen. So that's why I offer this as a form of again, this is a Parato Ghosa, giving you information. Now you need to take away and distilled and investigate with your own knowledge and investigation. But importantly, I would encourage you to practice meditation and see through it by using this dependent origination. I would end here for tonight a little early. So with this, may you be happy, well and successful. May the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you. In a few minutes time we will have a chanting and meditation. You're most welcome to join. And thank you everyone. See you shortly. Thank you.